The Speaking Statements, the podcast of statements about the 50 U.S. states. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and click the bell for alerts for when a new episode is released.
Hello, listeners. Welcome to another episode of Season 5 for the Speaking Statements. We have a guest here to talk about Michigan. I want to announce Professor Julian Mortenson from the University of Michigan to talk about Michigan today. Hi, Julian.
Hey, Julian. I am so glad to be here with another Julian.
Yeah, I've got some questions about Michigan. My first question is, can you tell me about the Great Lakes?
The Great Lakes are enormous. One of the things that I think is the coolest thing about the Great Lakes is like Chicago and the Chicago area is on one Great Lake. And I'm also close to one of the Great Lakes, but we're like 5 hours away from each other. And there's a Great Lake that we're both close to. So they're huge. They're more like oceans than they are like lakes. If you take the ferry from one side of Lake Michigan to the other side of Lake Michigan, and you go the short way, do you know how long it takes?
How long?
It takes 3 hours. And when you're in the middle, do you think you can see the shore?
No way.
No way. For like an hour and a half of the trip, you can't see any shore. And it's like amazing. Because whoever heard of being on a lake where you can't see the shore? But that's the Great Lakes.
Yeah. Another thing I know about the Great Lakes is that the first letter of each spell out homes. H is for Huron, O is for Ontario, M is for Lake Michigan, E is for Erie, and then S is Superior.
Wow. That is a great way to remember them. Is it okay if I borrow that way to remember them too?
Of course.
All right.
My second question is, what do you like about Michigan and why?
Michigan has many different parts that are all different and wonderful. So if you're in Southeast Michigan, in Detroit, there's a big city with professional sports teams and lots of cool museums and lots of interesting restaurants. And if you're on the western part of Michigan, there's like beaches and sand and waves and stuff that feels like you're in the wilderness. And if you're in the northern part of Michigan, there's a completely separate part that you have to cross a bridge to get to. It's called Upper Michigan. And that is like another world. And to even get to the beginning of Upper Michigan, I have to drive 5 hours from where I am. And if I wanted to drive all the way to the end of Upper Michigan, it would probably be 10 or 11 hours. So it's a state that has so many different kinds of places, and they're all interesting in different ways.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it. My third question is, can you tell me about Detroit?
Sure. Detroit is, they call it the home of the home of the auto industry. It's a city that grew up around a bunch of big companies that build cars, Ford, General Motors, Chevrolet. And so the car industry is really important in Detroit. And there's a great museum just outside of Detroit called the Henry Ford Museum that was created by Henry Ford, who was a really important guy early on in making cars. And that museum has everything you could possibly want to know about cars. And do you know what else?
What?
If you go to the Henry Ford Museum, one of the things you can do is go to a factory where they're actually making cars or pickup trucks, actually. It's called the Red Rouge factory. And you can walk around on top of the factory floor and watch the people and the robots making cars. It's awesome.
Wow, I didn't know that robots made cars too. My fourth question is, what kind of foods are popular in Michigan?
Gosh, so many kinds. I would say two of the big categories around where I live are, have you heard of Coney Islands? It's kind of a weird name. So diners are a place where you can go and get eggs or bacon or pancakes.
I
Have you
know
been?
diners serve whatever you want. I know.
100%. In Michigan, they call them Coney Islands. Don't ask me why. And it's a thing that people like to go to. The other one that's popular around where I am is Middle Eastern food. There's a very big Arab population in Southeast Michigan. So you can get great falafel, you can get great chicken shawarma, you can get really sweet baklava. Have you ever tried baklava before?
What's baklava?
It's like, if you think about really thin layers, really thin layers of dough, like cookie dough, but like probably, I don't know, 100 of them. And between them is honey and little nuts. It's like you're eating magic. I don't know how else to describe it, but it's delicious.
Oh yeah, that probably sounds good a bit to me if you count icing instead of honey.
Yo, that's a good, I love that idea for a change or just spin on baklava, icing baklava. It's a good idea.
Oh yeah. Uh, my fifth question is, can you tell me about the nature of Michigan? I know there is it has lots of nature.
Oh, so much nature. There's so many options to tell you about. I guess one thing I'd tell you about is a river that goes right through where I live. It's called the Huron River, and you can get kayaks or rowboats if you're old-fashioned like me, and go paddling around on the river and explore parts where there aren't very many people, and it's very pretty. And so that's a nice local piece of nature. The big river moves kind of slowly. It's really fun to go with your family. Then another place that I'll tell you about is the Sleeping Bear Dunes. They're enormous sand dunes, like you would see in the Sahara Desert or in Nevada or in like Egypt, but they're in Michigan. And it probably takes you 45 minutes to climb up them. And they're huge and they're beautiful. And do you know why they're called the Sleeping Bear Dunes?
No. Is there sleeping bears in them?
That could be true. I bet there might be. But guess what they look like to some people?
Sleeping bears.
Yes, they call them that because some people used to say it looks like a big bear hunched up, leaned over, and went to sleep. So that's sort of a legend of the Sleeping Bear Dunes. But they're awesome. And the best part is running down them. You can fall 100 times, you don't get hurt. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, I really want to go to Michigan sometime. I've got to visit that.
I think you should. I think you would really like it.
My sixth and last question is, if someone new came to Michigan, what would you recommend?
Goodness, we talked about the Henry Ford Museum. We talked about the Sleeping Bear Dunes. I mean, I'll tell you one thing that's a classic Michigan thing is to go to a University of Michigan football game. They say that the football stadium in Michigan is bigger than any other stadium in the world except for two. So suffice it to say, Michigan Stadium's huge. And when the University of Michigan plays and the players all run onto the field in their blue and maize, I should say, uniforms, and the crowd roars in excitement, you don't even have to like football that much to think it's pretty cool to be around that many people who are that excited at the same time. So I would recommend that.
Yeah, it's kind of fun being like the second or the third biggest thing. Well, I'm done with my questions. We were glad to have you talk about Michigan today.
I was so glad to talk about it with you. Your questions were great. And I'll talk with you about Michigan any other time you want to. I love your idea for a show. It's great.
Well, bye.
Bye.
And now to my notes for Michigan. It's called the Wolverine State. It became a state in 1837. It's the 26th state. The capital is Lansing. The largest city is Detroit. The abbreviation is MI. And now from what Michigan borders, we're going to do it by lower and then upper. Lower Michigan borders Ohio, Indiana, Lake Michigan, Lake Erie, and Lake Huron. Upper Michigan borders Wisconsin, Lake Michigan, Lake Huron, and Lake Superior. A common animal in Michigan is the white-tailed deer. It also has elks and moose. Michigan has 360 types of birds. The rare Kirtland's warbler, ospreys, raptors, short-eared owls, and peregrine falcons are also found in Michigan. Reptiles include red-bellied snakes, spiny soft-shelled turtles, and 5-lined skinks. And now we'll do the fast facts with Leo. Give it a go, Leo.
What is the state key?
It's the white pine, just like Maine.
What is the state flower?
It's the apple blossom.
What is the state bird?
It's the American robin.
What is the state game mammal?
It's a white-tailed deer.
What is the state fruit?
Well, there really is no state fruit, but there's an unofficial one, which would be the tart cherry.
What is the state fish?
It's the brook trout.
What is the state reptile?
The state reptile is a painted turtle. That's all, Leo. Sadly, we don't have more. Bye.
Bye.
And now, last but not least, we have the Michigan quarter, which is Upper Michigan and Lower Michigan with all 5 lakes, including Ontario. In the words of the Great Lakes State. That's all for today. But check in next week for the second to last finale of Season 5. Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Speaking Statements.